My name is Benjamin Poole, and when I was 23, I gave my life savings to a broker who lost it all. But this taught me an invaluable lesson. I needed to educate myself to make my own financial decisions. Fast forward 20 years, I am no longer living paycheck to paycheck, and I want to share everything I've learned with you. Welcome to Financially Fit. Welcome to Financially Fit. My name is Benjamin Poole, and today I'm going to show you the beauty in the charts. I'm going to go over AFRM and show you a couple different levels there and how to redraw trend lines and stuff. And I'm also going to go over the SE chart from last week and kind of give you an update in what I would do with that current position. All right, so head over with me to the AFRM chart. So check this chart out, you guys. So I want you guys to understand that there is so much beauty and form in these things, and it's absolutely amazing. If you've taken any of the methodology training, you'll know that what I'm about to teach you is in the methodology, and it's all about third hits and the fifth hits of trend lines, okay? So I want you guys to see this, right? So we have this pivot that goes back in May. So what we do is we draw a line from one pivot to the second, and then the third. So the third hit of a trend line is usually going to give you a really big bounce. And as you can see here on the AFRM chart, the third hit of the trend line was a really big bounce. Okay, so this was a kiss of the trend line. So I could have moved this up a little bit, but I have this trend line in there for another reason that I'm going to go into later. All right, so this was the third hit, big move up. All right, so the reason we play third hits is because the fourth hit and the fifth hit of trend lines actually decrease the probabilities of a bounce. So you can see here the fourth hit, it did get a bounce. It got a small bounce up here. And then the fifth hit, it bounced slightly, but then fell below. So what we know is that when trend lines get broken that weren't support, they were once support, now become resistance. All right. So we have this drop here. And so we wait for a reversal signal before we enter a trade again. And so we have this bottom here, but that bottom doesn't really tell us anything because we had a low here that was lower than here, but we didn't have any signal that tells us, hey, this stock is going to rally and go to the upside. So what we do is we just monitor this level and say, all right, well, that's an interesting level. Let's see what else it does. So here's the first pivot point. Pivot came up here. Awesome. There's nothing for us to do there. Then here's our second pivot. So these are so close together, we're going to consider that one hit of the trend line. All right. So then we have the third hit. It's an upsloping trend line, slightly. And so we know, based on this other chart, that we're going to have a good move off of this. And so what does it do? It rallies up. All right. The cool thing is, because this rallied up and we have this pivot point here, as this comes down, we can see that is a major pivot. And so now we can draw this trend line from here through here. And now we have our second pivot here. All right. So that's what's nice about this. Now we come down and we could have drawn the pivot point from here to here. So one thing that I really like about upsloping trend lines and drawing them, this would have been the third hit. We could have taken this here, but you notice it goes below there. So it's telling us that that wasn't the true trend line. And so we would have put our stop right below this and stopped out and waited for the next pivot. So it turns out that the next pivot was actually right here, and that was our second pivot. And so then we can connect our trend line from here to here. And so now we've got a target. When it gets down to this level, that's where we're going to go for a long. Okay, so now we have this upsloping, this upsloping trend line. We know that this was a hit. And so when it hits again, we know that's going to be our third hit of that trend line. And now it's resistance, and so we can get a pullback. The really nice thing, the cool thing is, there's so many different levels and so many different ways you can play these. And so that's what I love about charts, you guys. And so then this is the third hit, and look at this, off to the races. This is the fourth hit of this trend line. What do we know about fourth hits? The probabilities of pullback or against resistance or a bounce on support, it's really low. And so look, it just took off. Bam. It went all the way up to close to this trend line. So this is why I have this trend line in. So you have this hit here, and this was the breakdown. And so this is actually just a retrace to the scene of the crime. And so when you get a retrace of the scene of the crime, you can actually anticipate a pretty big pullback, okay? So that's what is really awesome about trend lines and why I really like them. So I'm actually expecting this chart or a firm to come down to about the $34 level. And that'll be a retrace to the scene of this crime. And then if it bounces along that a couple more times, this could actually come in and fill this gap right around the $26 level. So this is why I really like charts. You just adjust when you have, when you get the signals, and then you just play the bounces and everything in between. That's the beauty of swing trading. Okay, so now I'm going to go over SE. So here's the chart of SE. So this is on the weekly time frame. So here is a pivot point from back in 2019. It kissed this pivot point right here. Sorry, it hit this pivot point. So this was the second hit of the trend line. This was the third hit of the trend line. Now, normally we'd get a really big bounce, but it doesn't seem like we got a really big bounce off of this level. However, because it was back from 2019, this is going to be pretty good support. And so that's why I still like this for a long. And just like we know, upsloping trend lines, if it breaks below and then confirms, then we can put our stop out and look for additional support. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go into the daily time frame. Let me go ahead and erase this real quick. Okay, so here's what we have on the daily. So I went over this kind of a pseudo inside bar, and I say pseudo because it did close, it opened below it, so the green bar is outside of this level. But because it is trending on that trend line, and it's an upsloping trend line, if it gets above this $38 level, then you can look for potential upside to right around the $39.83 level. And then you're going to have additional resistance right around the $42 level. So those are the targets that I have set for SE. If any break below and a confirmation below, then you're looking for either you're going to stop out or you add at your next support levels, depending on if you kept this a small enough position. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed these. I hope you enjoy charts as much as I do. They're fascinating. Just know that this is for educational purposes only. Please do your own research. And thank you guys so much for watching and supporting and commenting. And we'll see you next time on Financially Fit.